I'm reading from the book Path to Happiness, and we're studying the keyword boundaries today. After I've finished the narration, we'll go into the questions and a few responses to those questions, and then finally I'll explain the understanding I have as to why a certain spiritual practice relates to the keyword boundaries. So the word boundaries, the keyword boundaries, is one of 4 keywords associated with strength and relates to the word no in the 7-word system. Lack of good boundaries shows in any feelings we may have of sustained imposition. Also confusion and anxiety arising from uncertainty of principles or choices, and any inclinations we may have to deceive or manipulate. Being respected is evidence of good boundaries, so too is showing respect. It is the boundary that defines the scope and reach of an entity, whether this is a country's border, the front door of your house, or the clear definition of self. It distinguishes between included and excluded. Nothing is immutable, and as much as national borders shift over time, so does the scope of self, the personality. Yet we are only as strong as our defences, and moment by moment we are required to make a statement that defines who we are so that we know what to protect and project. We must defend our boundaries because we are constantly under pressure from external forces that will want to shape us according to their own purposes, not ours. It is entirely unrealistic to believe we can apply discipline over external forces unless we have developed self-discipline. Without self-discipline, our boundaries cannot hold. The very qualities that are needed to be self-controlled are those that control invasive forces in the external world. Employers, salesmen, politicians, and parents are examples of persuasive forces that are not above taking advantage of poorly boundaried individuals. It is not only the school bully that we need to defend against. In fact, the likeliest people to be invasive at times are probably our lovers, family members, and closest friends. We can identify the need for stronger boundaries in 2 ways. Firstly, the physical body registers this weakness as discomfort. We experience pain or illness when we have allowed inappropriate things to occur. This is not only crying out when someone steps on our toe, it is also the chronic morning cough of a cigarette smoker or the drinker's hangover because they couldn't say no to the offer of one for the road. Social pressure and commercial greed are powerful agencies that make it likelier for us to ingest poisons. Beyond this, there is a physical message in the body when we are imposed upon, mentally or emotionally. A feeling in the gut or the heart, sweatiness of the palms, an adrenaline rush, a feeling of sexual urgency, loss of speech, dryness in the mouth, and similar experiences are all indicators of possible imposition. Secondly, we notice that our spontaneity is thwarted or dull. Unless we can readily express our authentic thoughts and feelings, then most assuredly we have been squeezed into a shape that is unnatural. Sadly, this is so commonplace that it is hard for people to understand or accept as true. It offends the ego to believe that we are inauthentic. Yet the only legitimate place for us to be, the only authentic work to do, social group to attend, life to live, is one that allows us freely to express who we are without fear or restriction. The reason we do not is that our boundaries have been weak, and we have suffered imposition by allowing others' will to dominate our own. The need for strong boundaries occurs in two scenarios: against those who bully and against those who suck. It is not to be imagined that these are occasional or unusual occurrences. They are constant and ubiquitous facts of life. The bully's push. Whether they know they are bullying is entirely irrelevant in this context. Obviously, the responsibility rests upon us not to impose upon another by being insensitive, uncaring, or abusive. Yet there is an equivalent responsibility not to allow another to get away with being insensitive or abusive against us. We actually enable the bully, by allowing them to push us. What is meant by the word bully here is one who disregards the preferences of another and asserts their own because they have the power. Most certainly we include parents, employers, and salesmen. In the opposite direction, the yin rather than the yang are those who seduce. Flirting is a very obvious example. If a person awakens the sexual appetite of another for amusement with no intention to bring satisfaction, then they are being somewhat abusive. Also, emotional blackmail is a device whereby a person draws upon the energy of another, often using social pressure as a tool. A child might elicit extra pocket money with a winning smile and a sob story, or an old lady might pressurize her dutiful son to visit her inconveniently often, without any attempt to offer an exchange of enjoyable attention. Society would pity the old woman because she is old. In this way, friends and neighbors would become the pressure that compels the compliant son, who cannot refute convention, however uncomfortable he might feel. Pity very often gives evidence that this sucking behavior is taking place. The enactment of good boundaries is entirely described by our knowledge and effective experience of the word no. We must learn what that word means and express this knowledge clearly and consistently. No means no. It is elegant and shows grace to enact this without violence. If atmosphere is enough, a glance is redundant. If a glance is enough, a word is unnecessary. If a word is enough, then physical force is shameful. If a punch is sufficient, then a bullet is criminal. But if a bullet is required, then it should be applied. Too much force is violence. But the violence lies in too much, not the force itself. Certain crimes must be prevented by appropriate force. If ambiguity has been delivered, then abuse will certainly arise. A parent must expect a child to break the rules if punishment is applied confusingly or inconsistently. Then the parent is the problem, not the child. Equally, if a husband comes home from the pub and takes his wife without sufficient sensitivity, perhaps once or twice, we can point a finger at the brute. But if it's every time, then the issue is more to do with her boundaries than his brutishness. This is not a question of morality, it is a question of reality. If we feel abused, then we must speak up. And if that doesn't work, then we must remove ourselves from harm's way, or suffer the consequences without blame or self-pity. It takes strength to do this. Without boundaries, there will not be respect. It is not feasible to expect to be respected unless we have clear, strong, consistent boundaries. Further, without receiving respect, we will not experience self-respect. And without self-respect, we will not experience respect from others. There are two sides of the same coin. They are two sides of the same coin. And without self-respect, there can neither be self-love nor happiness. However idealistic we may be about human nature, about spiritual philosophies of loving acceptance and compassion, the hard truth is that we live in the natural world, and nature is harsh. Beyond and beneath a very thin veneer of civilization and civil behaviors, The animal nature is strong within us all and acts unconsciously. As survival issues become higher in profile, animal tendencies re-emerge. Animals kill to eat and fight to claim a place to be. A mature, strong adult demands respect and can enforce their right to defend their own and their family's needs for physical and emotional stability. This claim is enacted by learning the meaning of the word no.
When you say boundaries can shift over time, do you mean they can become more or less permeable or even breachable? Or do you mean that they remain equally strong and either increase or decrease the extent of the scope?
Well, everything changes over time, and yes, of course, boundaries can become more permeable, and we do get breached, of course we do. But I think the point here is that even if you keep your boundaries fairly strong, the natural pushing and pulling of life will expand and contract the effect of that particular level of strength. So we can see on the map of the geographic kind of movement of countries as they expand and they contract according to the strength that they exert on the world and the strength that the world exerts back. So certain military power develops and so on. So on the personality level, we move from one area of activity to another. In the first, we might be highly skilled, and we might be using that skill to strengthen our boundaries. We might have knowledge, we might have position, and we use that to strengthen our boundaries, whereas we might move into another area where such hard power is not applicable. And soft power then is perhaps insufficient to hold our boundaries in place. So this occurs over time as much as it does from time to time, from place to place. So somebody, for example, who's extraordinarily strong in their boundaries at work and might be the office boss, they might come home and have the kids run all over them and persuade them to take them out shopping and so on when they don't want to go. So our boundaries are contextualized according to time and place. And as we move through life, the same situation becomes more and more familiar to us. We're probably going to gain in strength of boundaries as time moves forward, up to a point. And then as you get older, you find that your boundaries possibly weaken at the very last kind of period of years, I would think, and so on. So we do have movement. There is very definite movement associated with all of this. We cannot assume just because we're strong boundaried now, we're going to be strong boundaried generally. And nor can we assume that because we're strongly boundaried here, that we will be elsewhere. It's a movable feast for sure.
You seem to be suggesting that no is a force, and isn't force by definition an imposition and therefore one not to be used at all, even non-violently?
Well, there is force in the world. It's a fact. All of the pushings and pullings that are going on all of the time are real. We are pulled into situations. We're attracted by the force of persuasion. Somebody tries to sell us something or persuade us to do what we think we shouldn't do. Temptation, in other words. They're drawing us into a realm of being that we wouldn't choose for ourselves, or perhaps they're pushing us to do something. We're always subject to force. And the idea that all force is wrong and bad and violent is just, I can't see it. We are beings of force just by being alive. Movement itself affects things. It has an effect upon what's going on in the lives of others. Just by walking across the room, you're going to change the perception of other people in the room and therefore impact upon them. So simply being who you are in a dynamic sense is a force field. So we have to face up to the fact that life is the movement, the interplay of forces. And the force that we bring to bear upon a situation. In the sense of no, that force is a resistant force. We have the power to resist imposition, and we have the power to resist temptation. So our power of resistance is no. We can't really apply no to somebody else. It's not like that. It's a responsive energy no. But it is a force. It takes somebody to try and push us away from our well-boundaried situation. And the force that they're using against us is matched, equal and opposite, by our power of no. I think that what we have to understand is that too much force is violence, too much force is wrong. But it's all to do with too much, not the force itself. There is nothing wrong with force, and anyway, it's unavoidable.
Is saying maybe just avoidance or reluctance to say no due to fear of causing offence, or can it be interpreted as someone needing more time to make up their mind, in which case they should perhaps just say that?
Well, that's the point, isn't it? If they say maybe because they're reluctant to offend somebody's feelings, they're actually saying no. The whole point is that maybe means no. But the discussion here is self-centered in that if we're invited to do something and the answer is not yes, a clear, simple, immediate, spontaneous yes, then there's a reservation. And that reservation indicates the imperfection of our own willingness to go along with the suggestion. And that resistance is the force of no. That reluctance to say yes is no. This is the point, that we don't have to think whether or not we're saying yes, no, or maybe. We're actually saying either yes, or if it's not yes, then by default it's no. Maybe means no. That's the wisdom here. And people that just say maybe because they can't find the power, the personal power to tell the truth about what their position is, yeah, well, maybe they need stronger boundaries. So the spiritual practice associated with boundaries relates to two concepts. The first in Arabic is aziz, and this is strength. And the idea behind this is that life, energy, is crystallized into form. And as we know from Einstein's equations, energy and form are interchangeable. So when divine energy takes a crystallized shape, then it develops strength. That's an expression of divine energy that relates to form. So, Ya Aziz, we say when we want to develop strength by calling down divine energy into the form that we have visualized. And the second practice, Majid, suggests glory or majesty. And this is the sense in which life itself is glorious. Life itself is magnificent. And we remember that. And we remember that it is not only God who has this magnificence. God most assuredly is the source of that magnificence. But when we tune into that facet of God, then of course we become like that. That's what it means to tune in. We become like that divine majesty quality of God. And so we take on a majestic demeanor, aristocratic, and a sense of being a jewel. And together, Ya Aziz, Ya Majid, would suggest diamonds in the earth. If you think about it, diamonds formed by bringing into a concentrated form vast amounts of energy for a vast amount of time. This is what creates a diamond. And so, Ya Aziz, Ya Majid, that's like creating a diamond out of oneself. And so, it is when we understand that we are perfectly legitimate creations of God, that we know that we have the right and the strength to be strong in our boundaries, to say, this is me, I deserve to be who I am, I deserve to exist, I'm a legitimate facet of God, and I choose this. This is me. This is where my boundaries are. Ya Aziz, Ya Majid. 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 Ameen.